Hey guys, this is Wes. We are in the kitchen right now, and these are the beets that I took out of my greenhouse, and these are the beets from Walmart. As you can see, these ones are a lot smaller. These are the ones I grew, but you'll see me take them out of the raised beds in the garden. This is Noah's, one of my boys. He got to water the greenhouse for me while I was in Africa and Honduras and Guatemala on the missions. But anyways, make sure you watch the video to the end. There's a really beautiful scene at the end, and just like all the other videos I did, I always put something in there. It's sort of like a little reward for the viewer watching the whole thing, but you guys will enjoy it. It's a silly game. All right, hope you guys enjoy the video and get something out of it. Thank you. Bye. Hey guys, welcome back. This is Wes. I'm going to show you guys a comparison today of some beets I bought at Walmart as opposed to some beets I am growing in my greenhouse. It is November 26th of 25 right now, and I'm going to show you, these are the ones I got from Walmart. Nothing wrong with them. Just, you know, what you would get if you went into a grocery store. I'm going to show you here in a little bit some of my beets and compare them. And the only difference, well, I don't know what's sprayed on those beets from Walmart. Honestly, I have no idea. But mine, there's nothing sprayed on them. The only fertilization I use is my compost, which is basically chicken manure, cow manure, goat manure, rabbit manure, grass, house scraps, wood chips, even urine. That might sound disgusting, but you think about the United States spending $28 billion a year on urea. That's from what our urine gets its name from, urea. And that's used as a huge fertilizer along with the ammonia that's in it. But you think about how much we spend on urea whenever you can produce it yourself. The only difference is it might be a little bit harmful at first because the acidity, the pH of your urine. I know that sounds gross. I first heard a lady by the name of Marjorie Wildcraft talking about it, how she'd pee in these 5-gallon buckets of water, and she would take them out and put them on her garden and help her fruits grow, her vegetables grow. And it sounds goofy, but it works. Waste that stuff every day. I know it sounds goofy, but it works. But anyways, I wanted to share a little bit of history. I'm going to read a couple excerpts from this book, Holodomor, the Ukrainian Famine, Genocide. If you ever get a chance to read that, or read Ann Applebaum's Red Famine, I highly recommend this book. These are real life famines, and if prices for food just keep getting higher and higher and higher, and it's more difficult to buy stuff, just grow it. It's going to be healthier. It's not going to have pesticides, herbicides, a bunch of junk fertilizer stuff. It's not going to have stuff sprayed on it to preserve it whenever it goes in a grocery store to make it look pretty and lose a lot of its nutrients. Just grow it yourself. To bring light to how effective and potent these were, I'm going to read a little bit of this, little history lesson here. I'm going to skip through some of this Holodomor book, which Holodomor is Ukrainian for death, genocide by famine, by starvation. So I'm skipping along here. This is in 1932. This is what Stalin was doing to the Ukrainians. And he wanted to do away with them and basically take all their land and get them off of the map, which he managed to kill about 10 million people. 2.5 million were children. So Stalin was a pretty harsh monster. So I'm just going to read a couple things here. According to Norman Neimark's figures in Stalin's genocides, the state collection of cereals, grains, and the largest wheat growing of Ukraine in the Northern Caucasus constituted 45 to 46% of the entire harvest, leaving the peasants bereft of food supplies. Those are the people who are actually growing the wheat, the grains. He basically had his goons, his soldiers, go down, take everything you possibly could from the farms. Whatever you grew, but the government got it. And you and your family were screwed. Harsh laws punished those who hid food, butchered livestock, or did anything the Soviet authorities considered theft. This included keeping supplies of seed grain to be used to plant the following year's harvest. That's why it's important not to use hybrids, to use heirlooms, so you can just take the seeds and grow them. People grew hungrier, and even their food supplies got low. They were naturally willing to risk imprisonment or exile to feed themselves. As the months went on, grain was forcibly collected and taken away in more areas, and the situation grew more dire. The government had taken everything. Many people were one animal slaughter away from having no more livestock. They had no prospects of procuring more grain, meat, or anything else. The last pig or chicken was killed and lasted a short while among a family. Then there was nothing but small bushels of potatoes. That went fast too. Then there was nothing. It goes into some laws he enacted. Those who still had something tried to hide their food. They feared not only their desperate neighbors, but also confiscation brigades, which he sent a lot of confiscation brigades into Ukraine. These aggressive and abusive units would tear apart whole homes with crowbars and other tools to find hiding places where food might be kept. Those who were discovered to be hoarding even a handful of grain underneath their floor could be shot on the spot or sent to a gulag. Some even claim that searchers would check the toilets and take human feces to test it later for traces of grain that had been illegally consumed. So how are you going to illegally consume your own food that you grew yourself? Pretty crazy. There's an arsenal of information just in this little book, but it's very useful in understanding. All it takes is one corrupt dude like Stalin. He is a piece of garbage, and he basically killed everybody, tried to rewrite history, used massive propaganda from the news, trying to cover up the millions of people he was killing. About 190,000. Well, let me go back a couple sentences. Russia also closed its borders with Ukraine. Rail travel was suspended for peasants and others without permission. Stalin became infuriated that those who traveled to other areas of the Soviet Union before the new restrictions were in place had spread the news about the conditions back home. By February of 1933, Soviet troops had arrested 220,000 internal peasant refugees. About 190,000 were forced back to their villages where they had no food left. Forced return had become essentially a death sentence. Just as starving people were not allowed to leave their areas, others were not permitted to enter the famine-plagued areas. Anyone attempting to bring any kind of unapproved materials of food was stopped, and then either turned away and had everything confiscated, or both. The military set up roadblocks at the entrances of large towns and cities to prevent peasants from seeking relief there. Even if they entered secretly, their passports barred people from the countryside from getting work or shelter in these cities. The peasants were thus blocked from even remote chances of saving themselves. Some historians have remarked that these restrictions meant the countryside had become like a gigantic open-air prison or concentration camp. Then there was this Hungarian British guy who came. He was a writer. He's a pro-communist. He went into Ukraine to look, and he noted that at the train stations were lined with begging peasants with swollen hands and feet. The women holding up the carriage windows had horrible infants with enormous wobbling heads, stick-like limbs, and swollen pointed bellies. With all food and livestock gone, villagers turned to eating dogs, cats, crows, and other wild animals, anything they could get their hands on. When these people were gone, people ate insects, tree bark, grasses, and weeds. Many became sick from these food sources, and their weakened state caught diseases that killed them. So there's a ton of more information in here. Super horrible stuff that happened. Even more horrible, but more in depth. And Anne's Red Famine. And so another book is Mao's Great Famine. In China, he killed like between 60 to 80 million people with starvation, and how he tried some initiatives, some, again, communist initiatives to try to bring his people ahead of time, get caught up economically, agriculturally. He ended up killing infinite amounts of people. So, let me see here. I have some notes on here I just jotted down. Doing a little bit of research on bees, which bees are loaded with folate, B9. That's important for cell growth and function, especially important during pregnancy. Red blood cell protection or production during repairing DNA. If you have low folate, you'll be fatigued, you'll be weak, you'll be anemic, you'll have low red blood cells, which means you won't be able to breathe as well, because your red blood cells are what carries the oxygen. And it also is loaded with manganese for bone growth, energy and metabolism, brain function. It protects against oxidative stress, and it helps helps wounds heal. I worked last night, and it's almost 1 o'clock, and I still haven't slept yet, so bear with me. It's loaded with potassium, which potassium is needed for your heart. Whenever your potassium gets low, your heart gets out of rhythm. You can have AFib, you can have, you can go into VTAC, all kinds of goofy stuff with your heart. So potassium is super important to your heart. And it also has nitrates in it. So nitrates help lower your blood pressure. Anytime we'd have patients come in and they'd be having chest pain, or we think there was a chance they're having an MI, we would hook them up on nitro, and that is a vasodilator. So if you, in theory, let's say, let me use this. Okay, we'll say this is a blood clot, and we'll say this is your veins. Okay, so whenever you vasodilate, you open up your veins and your arteries, and so blood can get around that blockage that's in there. Without it, and you're vasoconstricted, it's like this, and you can't hardly get blood through there. But as your veins and arteries dilate, blood can get around blockages. So we put them on nitrates. That's a common thing for patients with chest pain. It's loaded with vitamin C. Vitamin A, I was reading in this book, the complete book of vitamins. I love reading mostly ancient history, but I really like learning as much as I can about natural medicine, natural remedies. I'm just going to read a few excerpts from the complete book of vitamins. This is about vitamin A. So beets are loaded with vitamin A. And I'm just going to read a couple things here. Taking a close look at animals who received absolutely no vitamin A, the researchers noted that both liver xanthine oxidase and kidney arginase levels were raised. They speculated that the increase was caused by the vitamin A deficient diet and may indicate a failure in amino acids utilization for protein synthesis. Apparently, vitamin A is intimately involved in the process of converting dietary protein into living flesh. If the vitamins are in scarce supply, it will preferentially be used for protein synthesis at the expense of other functions. If there is no vitamin A, even protein synthesis stops. It has been known for several years that protein and vitamin A are in some ways related, and that the I'm going to butcher this word, kwashiorkor, the protein deficiency disease, is frequently accompanied by vitamin A deficiency. Kwashiorkor affects thousands of youngsters in Indonesia, Brazil, and other countries where complete protein foods are in short supply. The logical way to relieve the distress of protein malnutrition would seem to be by adding protein to the diets of these starving children. But when UNICEF, with the best of intentions, distributed protein supplements in the form of dry skimmed milk to these children, a strange and distressful situation occurred. There was an epidemic of eye diseases, the kind that frequently lead to blindness. According to Tropical and Geographical Medicine, it is perfectly obvious that milk does not cause eye lesions. But what does cause eye lesions? Vitamin A deficiency. In 1968, the non-fat milk used in the food donation programs was fortified by with vitamin A because it was now clear that increased protein intake increased the need for vitamin A. This dependency of protein on vitamin A was cited by Dr. Oswald A. Rolls of Columbia University and Dr. James Mack of City University, New York, in a study of vitamin A and protein metabolism. And Dr. Rolls, they elaborate a little bit more here, saying that a deficiency of protein malnutrition frequently occurs simultaneously. The absorption of dietary vitamin A is impaired. Acute protein malnutrition and adequate serum and dietary proteins are necessary for the mobilization of vitamin A from the liver and its transport to the blood. Increased protein intake results in greater vitamin A requirement, and both protein and vitamin A are required for growth. And I just went through this book and just kept going through and highlighting a bunch of information on vitamin A and how important it is, and how I'll just read one more little paragraph. This is a different doctor. Dr. Varnell determined that where vitamin A is deficient in the diet, there is a concentration of free amino acids in the liver. In other words, these amino acids have no way of getting together into the protein chain, which the bloodstream then supplies to the cells, where it becomes the body's building blocks. When these cells, tissues, and organs defend against infection or maintain all the delicate balances inside tissue and blood that are so vital to every single life process. In fact, this new finding, which implies that you can be protein deficient on a diet that is adequate in protein, has far-reaching implications. If you're not getting enough vitamin A to participate in the job of lining up methionine in a protein chain, it is possible that this pile-up of amino acids playing havoc on your liver instead of playing their role in the protein chain is seriously hampering with the effectiveness of your liver and slowing down its job order rate at a time when toxins in the air, water, and food demand peak efficiency for detoxifying this organ. So there's a lot more to it than that, but I'm probably boring people right now. The beets are also loaded, I think I said, with vitamin C. Everybody knows that's really good for fighting free radicals in the body, which often produce cancers and heart disease. So what are free radicals? Those are basically just unstable molecules and unpaired electrons that are a natural byproduct of normal cell metabolism, normal cell metabolization, like cellular respiration. And then external factors that cause free radicals are air pollution, pesticides, industrial chemicals, cigarettes, x-rays. And then from that, you get the oxidative stress, which causes arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, emphysema, Alzheimer's, cancer, premature aging, yada, 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 goes on and on and on and on and on. So whenever you see these starving people having these abdomens that are bloated, they have protein deficiency, yes, but they also have vitamin A deficiency, and that they aren't able to regulate the fluid in the body's bloodstream. So one of the books that I read of the Holodomor, some of Stalin's goons would go around, and he had this one captain that would bring this firing squad, and they would go into these houses and raid them and see if people were hoarding this much grain. And if they were, instead of having his soldiers shoot them, this captain thoroughly enjoyed killing people himself. So he would just shoot everybody with his pistol. And so they would go in and just, his firing squad would have their rifles loaded. None of them would fire around. This evil monster would just go and he'd shoot people himself. And there's one lady, this is where the Beets come in. Well, there's several points where the Beets come in, but I may have to skip some of that because this is getting kind of long. There was one lady who had a cow and she had a baby. And this captain went up to her and says, "You're not allowed to have this cow. This cow has to go back to Moscow." And she said, "This cow is how I'm feeding my baby. This is how I'm nourishing my baby. If this cow dies or is gone, my child's gonna die." Well, that piece of garbage, that captain, he shot the cow in front of her and walked away. So what that lady did was she took these and she made a nectar out of them. She used a beet nectar. It's actually in this book of complete vitamins. It actually mentioned that beets are good for infants. And so this lady figured out how to make the milk out of the beets. And it got so bad that some parents resorted to strangling their children rather than starving them to death. I can't fathom that. I can't. Some parents would go out and they'd dig holes in the back of their yards that were deep enough that they could leave their kids out there and let their kids die down there. They would walk away from them after they put their kids down there because they'd rather not see them starve to death. And there's all kinds of just hideous, desperate things that people would do so they wouldn't have to see their kids die. And I remember reading about one woman. She said, I can have more kids, but I can't find another husband. But with my husband, I can have more kids. And if you're not getting all the nutrients you need, you're not going to be thinking right anyways. Your mentation is going to be slowing down. Your cognitive ability is probably going to be like mine right now, where I'm half awake. Anyways, beets were used in the Holodomor to keep people alive. And so if they were a survival food back then, there's no reason why they couldn't be a survival food if things went bad. I know I hear lots of guys on YouTube saying we'll be hit with an EMP and then we won't have any electricity, and in a year 90% of the people in the United States will be dead. Will that happen? I don't know. Is our grid susceptible? Yeah. I mean, but it could have happened, up until our grid started, up until now. I know there was one back in the early 1900s. It was something event. I forget what it was called, but fortunately there wasn't a whole lot of electric grid then. It was basically like the Morse code communication, and those things all got fried by some solar flares. But anyways, what I want to do right now is show you guys some of the beets that I grew in my greenhouse. And if you build one, you don't have to worry about putting them in the basement and trying to preserve them that way. You just leave them in the soil and then you go out in your greenhouse and you get them. So I'll show you, try to keep this thing steady here. I'll show you one here. Here is one of my beets. I hope you can see that. Okay. There's one. And again, those are the Walmart ones. And this is mine. I'll show you another one of mine. I have some more beets here. Take a look and see what we got in here. Oh yeah, we got a big beet there. That thing is loaded with nutrients. Okay. Now, I'm gonna try to do a little comparison here. And I have a bunch of these things. A bunch of these massive beets. I have some actually that are bigger than this thing. But I'm gonna hold these two up. Oh, that one sort of broke. These beets are too big for me to just eat by myself with the wife and the kids, so I'll probably take one of these beets up to my parents' house They love them too, but I love them. Beets are so good, and they're so good for you. So these are my beets, and these are Walmart's beets. You can grow these too. Biggest thing I did to grow my beets was I watered them about every 3 days. I had my own compost, and I planted them in, I believe it was end of February. I planted them in the greenhouse, and right now it's November, so they're considerably larger. These things from Walmart, they're probably grown in California. Yeah, Salinas, California. Maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Salinas, California. So they're probably planted like 3 months ago or something. I don't know, but you can plant these. You could guerrilla garden beets if you wanted to, and I don't have to worry about there being some garbage pesticides or fertilizers or herbicides or something that's not natural on these. These are mine. I know I seeded them, and I just pulled them up out just literally just now. You got to see me. I'll be posting some more videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed this little history lesson here. I love history. I'm obsessed with history, and it would be good, especially since how expensive food is I'm not saying that we're necessarily going to face starvation, but food's more expensive. Just go out and save yourself tons of money on your food and get yourself some healthier food and grow it your own. Holodomor, Red Famine, and Mal's Great Famine. This book is loaded with lunatics. Whenever people don't have any respect for life, any sanctity for life, people will turn into monsters for power, and they do not care how many lives they have to roll over and just destroy and decimate. They don't care. They just want power and money and power and money and power and money. And again, life doesn't matter to them. I recommended those books, and I'm going to recommend one more. This is for history lovers. If you like history of ancient Greece and Rome and history of the church, things like that. This is A Christian Lion, Nero, Circus, Maximus. This is my book. I put it on Amazon. I published this like probably about 10 years ago, and I'm working on the second one right now. I'll read a quick synopsis for you. Paetus Decimus Arius, a legatus of Rome, had led legions against Gaul, Germania, Parthia, and served under Vespasian in the Judean War. It is after Caesar Nero summons Paetus to take a small contingent of Rome's elite centurions to Greece that Paetus encounters Antiochus Miltiades Delphini, the last thread of the ancient Spartan military. At the cost of 33 of his centurions, Paetus is able to capture the last Spartan. Fearing this Greek more than any man he has ever known, Paetus shackles Antiochus next to a Christian, an evangelist, who converts Antiochus on the voyage to Rome. In Rome, Antiochus becomes the focus of Nero's vindictive hatred, as a Christian is tortured and forced to fight gladiators and beasts before the endless audience in the Circus Maximus. In the prisons of the Circus Maximus, he learns of Judas, a famous overgrown lion Nero uses to kill Christians for Rome's entertainment. Knowing his wife's soul is at stake, Antiochus must endure the pain and exhaustion of impossible odds in order to take the truth of salvation to his wife. Seeing the grief Antiochus endures, many Romans convert to this new faith, but fear being discovered, knowing they too may stand in the Circus Maximus, where Nero tested the innocence and pristine beauty of a faith he despised. That's the synopsis of it. Again, you can find it on Amazon. The Christian Lion, Nero, Circus Maximus. And I'll be making some more videos about what I have going on. I have tons of peach trees behind me. I'll make some videos on those. They're super easy to grow. I just germinate them, break the husks, germinate the seeds. Anyways, I hope you guys learned something. I hope more people decide they want to start growing more of their own food, become healthier, and just enjoy the beauty of being able to grow your own food. All right, you guys take care. I'll see you on the next one. This is a gorge for the Zambezi River. Get down a little bit closer. Holy moly. So what you're seeing now is a site of the Zambezi River. This is from a gorge along the road that we were going to pour one of the pads for water reservoir for a couple of the wells we did. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There will be a link in the description below for the Christian Lion. And remember Galatians 6:9, let us not become weary of doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up.